The twin moons hung low over the salt flats, their pale light bending across heat-shimmered air. The night on 9 wasn't silent, it breathed. The wind sighed through the dunes, and somewhere far off, a night beast's low call rolled like thunder. Adjusted the straps on his desert pack, his boots crunching over cracked ground. His skin prickled from the cold bite that came after the heat. It had been a long day tracking water veins beneath the flats, too long, and he should have turned back an hour ago. But they were close to the outpost now. Walked ahead of him, her thin frame swaying under her load. Even exhausted, she moved with the grace of her kind, the all-long limbs and smooth, scale-mottled skin that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. She was talking, pointing out where old wind towers had once stood before the storms took them. He liked her voice, not just the sound of it, but the way she never spoke without purpose, didn't waste words. The ground ahead rippled. Saw it just a shift like heat mirage made solid. He opened his mouth to warn her. It struck first. A blur of motion uncoiled from the sand, a viper the length of his leg, its body ringed with faint bioluminescent bands. Its mouth was open before she even turned. The fangs punched into the side of her calf. Screamed, stumbling back. The snake's coils writhed, then it was gone, sliding into the flats with the speed of wind over glass. Was at her side in a heartbeat, catching her before she fell. Sit, he ordered, lowering her onto the salt. Now. Her breath came fast and sharp. It was a... Don't talk, said. His eyes went to the wound. 2 neat punctures already swelling. The skin around them was turning a dark, ugly violet. He knew the type, desert venom, fast. Her fingers gripped his sleeve, nails biting through the fabric. Listen, you can't. Quiet, he snapped, already dropping to his knees. His mind ran through the possibilities. Medicine hated human improvisation. They had protocols, slow, sterile, often useless in the wild. They would never. You can't touch my blood, she gasped. It's taboo. Her words blurred as the poison raced upward. He could see the veins darkening under her skin. Her breath hitched. Swore under his breath, then close your eyes. He bent down, pressing his mouth to the wound. He tasted salt, then the copper of her blood, then the bitter electric sting of venom. He spat, drew another mouthful, spat again, working fast and steady, ignoring the burn building on his own tongue. She made a sound half protest, half sob, but she didn't pull away. After the 3rd cycle, the swelling slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. He dug a clean wrap from his pack and bound the leg tight above the bite, slowing the spread. You, her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from something sharper. You've broken a law older than the flats. He met her eyes. Then they can find me later, let's get you back. Her scales were cold under his hands now, a bad sign. He hauled her onto his back, feeling her weight press into him. She was light, too light. Bones were hollow, but she was weaker than she should have been. They moved across the flats, his breath loud in his ears. The moon slipped lower. Ahead, the outpost lights burned faint through the haze. Halfway there, movement flared on the horizon, 3 gliders, their sails black against the moons. They were coming fast. Slowed, shifting weight. Friends of yours. Her head lifted weakly, her eyes widened. No, council hunters. Great, muttered, because this night wasn't exciting enough. The gliders fanned out, cutting across their path. As they drew closer, saw the riders, males in the pale armor of the council guard, their eyes fixed on. One called out in the tongue, his grip on his shoulder tightened. Don't stop, she whispered. The lead guard's voice rose, sharp now. Hand her over, human. Kept walking, she needs a medic. She needs judgment, the guard shot back. You've defiled her. His jaw clenched. She's alive because of me. That's not for you to decide. The gliders swung closer. One rider reached for the weapon slung at his hip. Stopped. Here's the thing, he said, his voice low and even. I don't take orders from people aiming spears at my patient. The guard sneered. Then you'll both die in the dust. The nearest rider lunged. Moved first. The rider's spear came down in a glittering arc, the blade catching the moonlight. Twisted, dropping low, the hist passed his shoulder close enough that he felt the wind of it. His free hand shot up, grabbing the shaft just behind the blade. He yanked hard, using the rider's momentum. The guard toppled from the glider with a startled grunt, hitting the salt crust with a crack. The glider veered off without its pilot, sail flapping wildly before it coasted to a halt. adjust its weight on his back. 3-on-1, bad odds, he muttered to himself. Run, she whispered in his ear, her voice thin. Please. Working on it. The other two guards split, one circling left, the other right. The leader, still mounted, aimed a wrist-mounted bolt caster. The weapon spat a flash of compressed air, and a dart zipped past his cheek, burying itself in the ground with a puff of white dust. Warning shot, the leader called. Kept moving, angling toward a shallow ridge ahead. If he could get them into broken ground, the gliders would lose their speed advantage. But the venom was still working through. He could feel her trembling grow worse. The guard to his left spurred his glider forward, spear lowered for a sweeping strike. Ducked again, but this time the guard's other hand lashed out, catching across the jaw. Stars burst in his vision. He staggered, boots skidding on the salt. The leader barked an order in the tongue. The two mounted guards wheeled around for another pass. Spat blood, all right, he muttered. Plan B. He dropped to one knee, letting slide gently to the ground behind the ridge's lip. Stay down, he said. Her hand caught his wrist. Don't. Trust me, he said, and meant it. He turned back just as the two gliders charged in, pulled a small cylinder from his belt pouch, a flare, though not the kind meant for rescue. This one was an engineer's trick, magnesium core, vented casing, overcharged to burn white-hot for less than 10 seconds. He thumbed the striker. The flare ignited with a blinding flash, lighting up the flats like daylight. The glider's sails caught the light and flared, blinding the riders. One veered off hard, nearly capsizing. The other swerved too late, his glider clipped the ridge, snapping a strut. The rider tumbled into the dust. Didn't waste time. He grabbed again, slung her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, and bolted over the ridge. Behind them, the leader cursed and dismounted, his boots hitting the ground with a thud. The outpost lights were closer now, maybe half a click away. His lungs burned, but he kept his pace steady. His breath was shallow, her body limp. You're not quitting on me, he said, more to himself than to her. The sound of boots pounding the salt came from behind. The leader was faster on foot than expected. A sharp whistle cut the air. Risked a glance back, the downed guard had recovered his caster and was lining up a shot. A dart zipped past the shoulder, the second one hit. He felt the sting in his side, just below his ribs. Heat spread instantly, like fire under his skin. His knees threatened to buckle, but he forced them to keep moving. The leader's voice echoed in the night. You can't run from the law, human. Almost laughed, almost. Funny thing about laws, he called over his shoulder, they change. The outpost's gate loomed ahead, the metal shimmering faintly under the moons. Two sentries, human, stepped forward, rifles raised. They recognized trouble. Open it, barked. The gates parted just as the leader came into view, a long shadow under the moons. His bolt caster came up, but the human sentries were faster. A burst of rifle fire tore the salt near his feet, forcing him back. Stumbled inside, the gates slamming shut behind him. The sentries moved to catch as lowered her carefully to the ground. She's been bitten, said breathless. Venom, I slowed it, but... The medics were already on their way. They lifted her onto a stretcher, moving fast toward the clinic. Followed until a wave of dizziness nearly dropped him. One of the sentries caught his arm. You're hit. Just a dart, said, I'm fine. You're pale as hell. Didn't argue, because the floor was starting to sway under his boots. In the clinic they split, taken behind a screen, guided to a cot. A medic inspected the dart wound on his side. Tracer compound, the medic said grimly. That's not for killing, it's for tracking. His gut tightened, meaning they know exactly where I am. The medic nodded, and they're not going to stop at the gate next time. From behind the screen made a sound, low, pained. Swung his legs off the cot. Then we have to move her before they come back. The medic hesitated. Move her where? Sighs were cold now, somewhere the council doesn't own. From outside, faint under the clinic's hum, came the sound of more gliders approaching. The hum of the clinic's lights seemed to fade under the rising sound outside, gliders, more than before, their sails snapping in the wind. Was already on his feet. We can't hold here. The medic stepped in front of him. She's not stable enough to move. She's not safe enough to stay, shot back, jerking his head toward the walls. You think those gates will stop the council if they decide to make an example? The medic's jaw tightened but didn't argue. Moved to the screen. Lay on the cot, eyes half closed, her skin, usually a cool iridescent green, now mottled with dark streaks. The venom was still in her system, slowed but far from beaten. She looked at him, the faintest ghost of a smile on her lips. "You should have left me in the flats." "Not my style," he said. Her gaze flicked past him toward the clinic's door. "They'll call me unclean now, and you." Crouched beside her, "I've been called worse." A shadow fell across the doorway, one of the sentries, rifle in hand. "They're surrounding the outpost. At least 6 gliders, maybe more. They're not making demands. Yet." Straightened, "Good. Means we have a window before they decide to rush us." He turned to the medic. "I need something portable, enough to keep her breathing for the next 24 hours. The medic hesitated. "If I give you that, you're going into the flats in the dark." His mouth quirked. "I've had worse nights." The medic grumbled something under his breath but moved quickly, returning with a compact med pack. 2 vials of anti-venom, a pressure injector, and a portable monitor. Slung it over his shoulder. "Help me get her up." Protested weakly, but ignored it, wrapping an arm around her back and pulling her to her feet. She swayed, leaning heavily against him. They moved to the back of the clinic, where a service hatch led to the supply yard. The sentry followed, rifle ready. Paused at the hatch. "If they breach, stall them." The sentry gave him a thin smile. "Don't worry about us, just don't bring them back here." And slipped into the yard, the cold night air hitting them like a slap. He guided her to a low fence and helped her over, then led the way through a narrow gap between storage sheds. The glider's hum was louder now, moving along the perimeter. Kept to the shadows, heading for the old wind tower beyond the outpost's edge. Its base had collapsed years ago, but the substructure still led into the dunes. His breathing was ragged. "Where are we going?" "South," said. "There's a smuggler run through the sandglass canyons. If we hit it before sunrise, they can get us past the council patrol lines." "And after?" He didn't answer. He was already thinking 2 steps ahead, where to hide her if the smugglers refused, how to keep her alive if the anti-venom failed. They reached the tower's shadow. Eased her down to rest against the broken base while he scouted the next stretch of open ground. That's when he heard it, a low, slithering rasp in the sand behind them. Turned slowly. Out from the shadows coiled another. Bigger than the one that had bitten, its bands glowing faintly under the moons. It moved with deliberate precision, tongue flicking in and out. His eyes went wide. "Don't move," he said softly. This head swayed, its gaze fixed on them. Then it surged forward. Stepped into its path, knife flashing from his belt. The struck low, faster than a whip. Pivoted, bringing the blade down hard just behind its head. The snake convulsed, its coils thrashing violently before going limp. He exhaled slowly, wiping the blade on the sand. Was staring at the dead serpent, her face pale. "You shouldn't have done that." Frowned. "You want it to bite you again." "That was a shadow mother," she whispered. "Killing one, it's a curse in my people's law." "Then I'll take the curse," said, lifting her again. "Come on." They made it another 100 meters before the hum of gliders shifted, sharper now, moving fast. A spotlight swept the dunes, catching them in its beam. Cursed under his breath and broke into a run. The sand dragged at his boots, each step a fight. The wind tower's shadow vanished behind them as the first dart hit the ground near his feet, kicking up a puff of white. The second dart wasn't aimed at him. It hit in the side. She gasped, her body stiffening in his arms. His heart lurched. Her eyes fluttered, then rolled back. Above, the glider's engines roared as they dove in. The dart stuck inside hissed, a faint trail of vapor curling into the cold air. Didn't stop to pull it free. He knew the council's sedative mix would work fast, and every second counted. The gliders roared overhead, their black sails snapping as they banked for another pass. Spotlights cut the dunes into jagged shadows. Tightened his grip on, shifting her higher onto his shoulder. "Stay with me, Lee." Her head lolled against his back. No answer. The sandglass canyons weren't far. He could feel the faint shift in the ground where the flats began to break into brittle ridges of glassy rock. If he could get inside, the gliders wouldn't be able to follow. The sails would shred on the canyon's teeth. The first rider swooped low, a spear sweeping for his legs. He jumped sideways, landing hard, sand spraying. The rider's curse was lost in the wind as rolled back to his feet and kept running. A second glider dived in from the right, reached into his belt pouch and came up with one of his last tools, a smoke capsule. He thumbed it alive and hurled it into the sand. It burst into a plume of thick gray, and the rider's aim faltered. The spear skidded wide, and the glider pulled up too late, clipping the edge of a glass ridge with a shriek of tearing sail. The ridge ahead rose sharp against the moons. His boots hit the slope, scrabbling for purchase on the brittle surface. The sound of cracking glass echoed under each step, and shards skittered down into the darkness beyond. Behind him, the leader's voice barked orders. Two gliders split off to try and cut him off at the canyon mouth. Pushed harder, lungs burning. At the crest, he saw the gash in the earth, a jagged canyon no more than 3 meters wide but dropping away into black. Perfect. He slid down the far side, half running, half falling, and landed hard on the canyon floor. The air here was cooler, still carrying the dry tang of ancient water. The walls rose steep around him, glittering with embedded shards that caught the moonlight like frozen fire. The gliders couldn't follow, but the riders would be coming on foot. He needed to vanish. Set down gently, bracing her against the wall. Her breathing was shallow now, eyelids fluttering. He pulled the dart free and sniffed the tip, not just a sedative, something sharper. The scent was faintly metallic with a bitter undertone. It wasn't meant to just put her to sleep. He cursed it under his breath, digging into the med pack. The portable monitor clipped to her wrist, reading her vitals in glowing green glyphs. The venom was still in her system, and now this compound was spiking her heart rate. "They're trying to push the poison faster," muttered. "Bastards." He loaded the pressure injector with the anti-venom, pressed it to her arm, and fired. The hiss was barely audible over the canyon's silence. Her eyes opened just a slit. "You shouldn't be here." Gave a faint grin. Too late for that. Boots clattered on glass above. Shadows moved along the ridgeline. The riders had dismounted and were searching for a path down. Scanned the canyon floor, spotting a narrow crack in the left wall. It was barely wide enough for him to squeeze through, but beyond it he could hear the faint whisper of moving air. That meant an opening deeper in. He lifted again, muttering, "You owe me for this one," and slid into the crack. Glass scraped his shoulders, tearing at his jacket. The space widened after a few meters, opening into a hidden chute that angled downward. The floor was slick with fine powder, and half slid, half stumbled until the chute spat them into a wider tunnel. The air here was different, warmer, laced with a faint, earthy scent. Bioluminescent moss clung to the walls in pale blue patches, casting ghost light across the stone. Set down again just long enough to catch his breath. He could still hear faint echoes above. The riders hadn't found this path yet, but they would. Stirred her voice a weak whisper. "They want me alive." "Yeah," said grimly. "Noticed." She shook her head slightly. "Not for trial for the seed." Frowned seed. But her eyes rolled back and she slumped again. He was about to lift her when a new sound drifted from deeper in the tunnel. Soft footsteps, deliberate, coming closer. Drew his knife and stepped in front of, "Show yourself." From the gloom emerged a figure draped in desert leathers, a hood pulled low. In the blue moss light caught a glimpse of a face, but older, the scales dulled with age. The stranger's eyes lingered on, then met. "You carry the venom marked," the stranger said quietly. "And you have walked into the buried paths. That means you are either very brave or very foolish." Didn't lower the knife. "Right now, I'm just trying to keep her alive." The stranger's gaze sharpened. "If she carries the seed, you will need more than that. You will need to decide who dies for it." Above, faint but closer, came the sound of the council riders dropping into the canyon. The stranger's words hung in the dim air of the tunnel, like a challenge, didn't understand yet. Behind them, the faint clatter of the council riders in the canyon was growing sharper, boots hitting glass, voices echoing as they spread out. Time was running thin. Kept his knife steady. "You seem to know what's going on, so talk while we move." The stranger tilted his head, then nodded toward the deeper dark. "Follow me, quickly." Slung over his shoulder again and fell in behind him. The tunnel narrowed, twisting left, then right. The air warmed as they descended, the moss-light fatting to nothing. Soon the only illumination came from the stranger's small lantern, a sphere that glowed with a pale amber light. "Name," he said as they moved, "and you are?" The stranger replied, "Once of the council before I walked away." Sighs narrowed. Council, then why help us? Because, said without looking back, I know what they will do if they get the seed. He stopped suddenly at a split in the tunnel and faced. Do you even know what she carries? Adjusted its weight. She mentioned a seed, not exactly in a mood to explain. His gaze went to his face. The seed isn't an object, it's genetic. A remnant from before the council bred our people into obedience. Some lines still carry it, a dormant code in the blood that can awaken the old resilience. Resistance to heat, strength, memory. If they confirm she has it, they will take her to the spire and strip it out. Stomach tightened. Strip it out, that'll kill her. Of course, his tone was matter of fact. They don't care. They want the seed in a form they can control, without the bloodline that might resist them. Looked down at her, breath shallow, her skin still mottled from the venom and sedative. So they're chasing her for what's in her blood. And because you broke their law by touching it, said, almost like an afterthought. A shout echoed down the tunnel from behind, swore, we're not outrunning them carrying her like this. His lantern light danced across the walls as he gestured to the right-hand path. This way, the air shaft will slow them, but be ready, the buried paths are not empty. The floor sloped sharply downward now, gravel crunching under his boots. The walls widened, and suddenly they stepped into a cavern that made him stop short. Bioluminescent vines hung from the ceiling like curtains, their light a cool blue-white. Pools of still water mirrored the glow, and in the center rose a broken column of carved stone, half buried in the floor. This is older than your council, murmured. Glanced at him, older than humans on 9. A ripple disturbed the nearest pool. The eyes snapped to it, and he froze. Something large and sinuous slid under the surface, its shadow too long to be any normal fish. His voice was low. Keep moving, the sleepers don't wake unless you make the water sing. Didn't ask what that meant. He kept to the dry path, careful not to disturb the pools. They were halfway through when a shout rang from behind. The council riders had found the entrance. A dart clattered off the stone near his head. He ducked, nearly losing his balance. His heel struck the edge of a pool. The water rippled. His head snapped around. Run. From the far side of the pool, something rose, a long, eyeless head, jaw opening to reveal rows of thin, hooked teeth. Another followed, and another, their eel-like bodies coiling in the glow. The sleepers were awake. Broke into a sprint, bouncing against his shoulder. One of the creatures surged from the pool, its body slapping against the stone path. He dodged aside, feeling the wind of its strike as it missed by inches. The riders weren't so lucky. The first one through the tunnel fired his caster, and the nearest sleeper wrapped around him like a whip, dragging him into the water. His scream cut off instantly. And reached the far archway, diving into the next tunnel as the sound of thrashing water echoed behind them. They didn't stop until the sounds faded. Only then did set down, checking her pulse, still weak but there. Watched him, lantern casting sharp shadows on his face. You'll never make it to the smugglers with her like this. The venom slowed, but the sedative will keep her under for hours. Tighten the medpack strap. Then we need somewhere to hole up, somewhere they won't look. His lips curved in something not quite a smile. There is a place, but you won't like it. From deeper in the tunnel came a low, resonant hum, mechanical, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Straightened, what is it? The old seed vault, said quietly. The one place even the council fears to enter. Boots scuffed on stone behind them. The riders were still coming. The hum grew louder as they descended, deep, steady, like a machine breathing. The tunnel walls changed too. No longer rough rock, but smooth, fused, and faintly warm to the touch. Thin threads of light pulsed under the surface, flowing in intricate patterns that reminded of circuitry, if circuitry could grow like roots. His voice was low, almost reverent. This place was here before the learned to walk upright. The seed vault is not our work. We inherited it. Shifted in his arms, her limp weight pressing into his shoulder. Inherited it and locked it away, you mean? There are reasons, said. The vault awakens only for those who carry the code in their blood, and it changes them. They rounded a bend and stepped into a chamber that seemed impossibly vast for something buried. Its ceiling was lost in shadow, but great vertical ribs of glowing metal stretched upward like the bones of a colossal creature. In the center stood a tall, conical structure, every surface alive with shifting patterns of light. Felt stir slightly, as if the hum was calling to her. gestured toward the cone. Place her there. Hesitated. What's it going to do to her? That depends on her will, said simply. If she accepts the seed, it will purge the venom, and more. And if she does, then it will burn her from the inside out. His jaw tightened, hell of a coin toss. Above them, faint echoes of boots reached his ears. The council riders had found the buried paths. Set down on the glowing platform at the cone's base. The hum deepened, and strands of light extended toward her, curling like vines. They touched her skin, and the mottled discoloration from the venom flared, then began to fade. Her chest rose in a long, slow breath. Her eyes opened. She looked confused, then at the chamber around her. Where? No time, said. This thing's healing you, don't fight it. Her gaze found, you brought us here. Inclined his head. You carry the seed, the vault recognizes you. The patterns on the cone brightened, shifting into shapes that almost resembled the old glyphs. Expression changed, recognition, then shock. These are songs. Blinked songs. They're instructions, she said softly. My mother used to hum them. I thought they were just lullabies. The hum shifted into a chord, resonating in the air. The light around intensified, wrapping her in a cocoon of blue-white glow. Boots pounded into the chamber. The first council rider stopped short, visor reflecting the vault's light. Step away from her. Moved to block the path, drawing his knife in one hand and a flare in the other. Not happening. The leader pushed forward, the same one from the flats, his armor scorched from the canyon chase. His eyes locked on. You think you can save her, human? You're making her a target for every faction on this planet. She was already a target, said. The leader's gaze hardened. Then you'll both die here, he raised his caster. Before he could fire, the vault's hum surged into a roar. Light exploded outward from the cone, knocking everyone off their feet. The glow around shattered into drifting motes, and she stepped forward, no longer swaying or weak. Her scales shimmered brighter than it ever seen, her eyes lit from within. She looked at the council riders, then at, I know what the seed is now. What is it? Asked, keeping his knife ready. It's not just strength, she said. It's memory, every skill, every survival instinct my people had before the council bred it out. I can feel it. The leader snarled, then you are too dangerous to live. He charged, moved faster than thought possible. She caught the leader's spear mid-thrust, twisted it from his grip, and swept his legs out in one motion. He hit the floor hard. The other riders hesitated long enough for to lob his flare at their feet. It burst in blinding white, and they stumbled back, cursing. His voice cut through the chaos. The vault is open to her now, she can command it. Looked at the glowing cone, then back at the riders. Her jaw tightened. Then I'll give them something to fear. She touched the cone again, and the floor between them and the riders erupted in a wall of light. It wasn't solid, but the air shimmered with such heat that the riders fell back, unable to cross. Stared, not bad for someone I had to carry half the night. Almost smiled. We're not safe yet. The vault's power will draw more than just the council. Nodded grimly. Then we take the seed where it can't be caged. Tightened his pack straps. Lead the way. Behind them, the wall of light flickered. The riders were already testing it. The wall of shimmered, rippling under the council riders' assault. Every strike made the vault's hum waver, like a note held too long. His lantern bobbed ahead as he led them through a narrow side passage. The walls here were smoother still, etched with faint glyphs that glowed as past, as if the vault itself recognized her. Kept his knife ready, eyes flicking behind them. How long before they find another way in? Minutes, said, less if they split their force. Glanced at the glowing walls. There's another exit the vault showed me, but it's not normal. Arched a brow, define not normal. She hesitated. It opens into the high desert, no tunnel, just a gate in the air. Grunted, a breach point, dangerous to use but the fastest way to vanish. They reached a chamber half the size of the main vault, its center dominated by a vertical oval of pure darkness. Thin arcs of light traced its edge, flickering like static. The air around it pulsed faintly, bending the light in the room. Stared, and stepping through doesn't just tear you in half. Gave a humorless smile. If the vault accepts you, it delivers you. If not, you don't arrive. Stepped toward it without hesitation. The light on the arch brightened in response, casting her shadow sharp across the floor. She turned too. It will let you through. It knows you saved me. Boots pounded behind them. The riders had found the passage. Moved to stand beside her, ladies first. They reached the edge of the breach, and the hum of the vault deepened, echoing in spones. The first rider burst into the chamber, weapon raised. Stop. Turned, blade up, but before he could move, the leader stepped in behind the first, helmet off now, eyes locked on. You think the seed makes you free? His voice was raw. It makes you property. The council will never stop hunting you. Met his gaze, her own steady. Then I'll make sure they have something worth fearing. She touched the breach's edge, and light flared across the floor, racing outward like water. It struck the riders' boots, and they staggered back as the floor itself rippled, throwing them off balance. Caught her arm. Where does this thing spit us out? Far enough, she said simply. The leader recovered his footing. You're walking into exile, girl. Out there you have nothing. Lips curved in the faintest smile. I have him, she glanced at, and I have this. Her hand brushed the hilt of the spear she'd taken from the leader in the vault. Gave the leader a dry grin. Appreciate the gift. The hum peaked, the breach flared open, swallowing the room's light. The riders surged forward, grabbed hand, time to go. They stepped into the darkness. For a moment there was no up or down, just weightless cold. Then heat, dry, clean heat, and the smell of salt wind. They stood on a high dune under the light of 9's moons. The desert stretched away in all directions, but no glider sails broke the horizon. The breach behind them flickered once and was gone. Let out a slow breath. Well, that was different. Turned to face the open desert, the wind tugging at her hair. Her eyes were still lit faintly from within, the vault's glow not yet faded. We can't go back, not to the outpost, not to Thread's Edge. Anywhere the council holds power, they'll come. Adjusted his pack, then we go where they don't. Stepped up beside them, hadn't even noticed him make it through. There are old places out here, he said. Ruins with tech even the vault feared, allies who remember what we were. Looked at, we could hide, or we could make trouble, finished for her. She smiled then, truly smiled, and for a heartbeat he saw the person she might have been without the council's chains. He glanced at the horizon. If the vault showed you the way out, maybe it can show you how to hit them where it hurts. His eyes gleamed in the moonlight. It can, but the price will be high. Gave a shrug. Everything worth doing is. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of the dunes shifting in the dark, and faintly the distant hum of something vast moving under the sand. Looked at, guess we start walking. She nodded, and we don't stop until the council's shadow is smaller than ours. They set off into the moonlit desert, 3 figures leaving no path behind them, the wind already erasing their tracks. Far behind in the buried vault, the light in the cone dimmed, but did not go out. It was waiting.